Isaac was born in Canaan and Pharaoh lived in Egypt. What happened next?
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, Tuthmosis III, the Pharaoh of Egypt, who fathered Isaac from Sarah, Abraham's wife, was ruling in Egypt. His royal house was in Memphis, not far from Cairo, modern Cairo, near Saqqara. Now, Abraham took Sarah back to Canaan, and there Isaac was born, as we knew before. And although Abraham tried to sacrifice him, offer him as a sacrifice on the rock of Jerusalem, eventually he didn't go on with that, and the boy survived. It is reported in the Bible that Sarah, his mother, when she knew about this event, she died. So she died when the boy was young. However, according to the biblical account, Isaac grew up and he married eventually a girl called Rebecca. And for a long time they didn't have any children, but eventually he got two twins, Esau and Jacob. Esau was born a little while before Jacob, but they were twins, both of them. And here, although the Bible doesn't talk about the royal kind of origin of these children, here we have a strange account that eventually, they talk about something called the birthright. The birthright is usually something to do with people who are born to royalties and so on. And so the child, the first child born to, like in England, for instance, to the Queen becomes, follows her on the throne. You see, we have an account of a kind of a conflict between Esau, who came first, few hours, and Jacob on this birthright. They don't explain what is birthright because it's only there, and not before and not after in the history of the Israelites. They talk about this birthright. What birthright for Hebrews, Bedouins? But here they talk about it, and it seems at least that Jacob took this birthright as more serious than Esau, his brother. So maybe it was a joke or whatever it is. It is said that Esau sold his birthright for a soup, some bread and soup, of lentil soup, that offered to him by Jacob. You see, so it seems that Jacob believed of this birthright, and Esau didn't take it seriously. They are living in Canaan. But it indicates that these children knew somehow that their grandfather was of royalty. Otherwise, what is this birthright? Again, now Jacob, when he, also to confirm that, the Bible makes an account that Jacob, Isaac, when he became an old man, he lost his sight. He could not see, and he wanted before dying to give his blessing, usually the blessing to the elder child, which is Esau. But Jacob, and he asked Esau to make him some food, but Jacob pretended that, because his father couldn't see, pretended to be Esau, and he offered the food to Isaac, and Isaac gave him the blessing of the elder son, of the heir, you see. So indicating, confirming this, which is a little bit. Again, now we have Jacob. Esau went eventually to North Arabia, and Jacob carried on in Canaan. And we know from the story that Jacob was married to 2 women, and these 2 women, each one of them had her maid, so he had, also these 2 women, so he had 4 women altogether, and he got from the 4 women 12 children, 12 sons really, and 1 daughter is mentioned. And strangely enough, this idea of the birthright comes here again, you see. They don't talk about birthright, but they think about the special boy, the successor. And they say that Jacob, loved more and cared more about his 11th son, Joseph. So Joseph was the boy who favored by his father Jacob, and he made him a coat of many colors, as the story says. Not only that, we have a more kind of indication of the birthright here in a more positive way, that this Joseph, like his father Jacob before, took the idea of his royal ancestry as more important, because he had many dreams, and in his dreams he dreamt that he was sitting in a high position, and even his father and his mother was bowing for him and his brothers. He had a dream of becoming a royalty or some kind of a ruler or a powerful man, which made his brothers jealous of him. Why should their father, first of all, prefer him? Usually the eldest son, Reuben, should have been the important one, but here his father favored him, and he, all the time, came and told him this, dreams that make him, they will bow in front of him in a royal kind of situation. Very strange. The mythological stories usually use this kind of mystical way of telling the story. So we only know through that. So eventually, we know that Joseph's brothers, when they were away in the desert, away from their father, and he went to see them, they captured him, and they sold him to a caravan of traders who were going to Egypt. And he was sold in Egypt. Was it by chance, or was it sending him to Egypt, or was it because they knew that he was all the time talking about being, he was a descendant of the king of Egypt, and so on. So they want to send him as a slave to Egypt. This is your position. They didn't take this royalty origin seriously as he did, you see. And he went to Egypt. Now, at the same time, Thutmose III, Pharaoh, the father of Isaac, the grandfather of the Israelites, was living in Memphis, in Egypt, you see. After ruling for 54 years, Thutmose III died. And while he had a son living in Canaan, Isaac, he had another son in Egypt who succeeded him on the throne in the name of Amenhotep II. Amenhotep II, like his father, was a warrior who carried on fighting to extend the empire and so on. And he ruled for about 26 years.
That's a long time.
And the son of Amenhotep II was Tuthmosis IV. Tuthmosis IV only ruled for 14 years. But Tuthmosis IV was, he's known, he ruled for a short time, 14 years, and he died when he was 28, but he is known to have been a dreamer like Joseph in a different way. The story says that he was not expected to succeed his father on the throne, but one day he was hunting near the pyramid and the area, and at that time the Sphinx was covered by sand. Only the head of the Sphinx was, and the Sphinx body was covered by sand, and he sat in the shadow of the Sphinx to have a rest. Then he dreamt, when he slept, he dreamt that if he was to clear the sand from the Sphinx, then he will become a king. He will succeed his father. We don't know how. Maybe he had an elder brother or something, but eventually that's what happened, really. And he became the king, and he cleared, according to the record, he cleared the sand from the Sphinx, Ra-Horakhti, representing Ra-Horakhti, the god of the sun, you see. And he had a stela between the poles of the Sphinx now exists, telling this story of the dream. So it is during the time of Thutmose IV, the dreamer king, that I believe that Joseph came to Egypt. You see, it's a king who had a dream and needed somebody to interpret the dream. He appointed eventually, after being bought by the prince or the ruler, or one of the viziers, as his slave, and we have this story with the mother and the wife of the, and eventually he was appointed by Pharaoh as his minister, as one of his ministers, and he, according to the Bible, he gave Joseph a wife, an Egyptian wife, the daughter of the priest of On, the daughter of the priest of Ra, On, which was in Heliopolis, which is a very important lady. He gave her as a wife to Joseph, and he gave him different objects when he was appointing him in his position. One of them is a small chariot and a golden ring, and so could it be? The Bible makes, kind of fairy tales and stories, but could it be? If you take it historically speaking, that Tuthmose III realized, was told by Joseph of this. His grandfather was Tuthmose III, and he realized that, and only because he realized that, he put him in this position very near to the royal king. Could the story, if you tell a story, and especially so that the biblical narrator did not want to reveal the real family relationship between Joseph and the Egyptian royal family, so he wouldn't mention that, and he put it in a different way, being a slave sold, and then suddenly this slave became a minister. Could it be not just because he interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh, but could it be because Pharaoh, somehow met him, and he realized that he, in fact, was a kind of a cousin, a great cousin to him? This idea can be more confirmed more in the story that we will carry on next time, when we know, Amenhotep III, the son and successor of Thutmose IV, not only kept Joseph in his high position, but even more married his daughter. He married Joseph's daughter and made her the queen of Egypt. And so united the two branches of the family.
Who was the queen?
The queen, we will talk more details about that next time, but I identified Joseph in historical terms as being a character called Yuya. Yosef is a name of two elements. Yu is a Yahweh thing, name of the god. Seth is the beloved of the thing. Seth is an Egyptian section. He was called Yosef.
What's the meaning of Seth?
Seth is the beloved or the favored.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an Egyptian thing. So I believe that Yuya, the minister from historical record, we know somebody called Yuya, who was very near to the king, appointed by the king as his he of the chariots. He was ruler of the chariots, the general of the chariots, and he married because he was living in the palace. His wife, the daughter of the priest of On, was in fact the nanny, if you can say, who brought the king up. So she had to live in the palace, in the royal palace, or in the vicinity of the royal palace. So her daughter, the king grew up with her daughter, Joseph's daughter, Yuya's daughter, who was named Tai, and eventually he married her. He wouldn't have married her, not only married her, but he made her a queen against Egyptian. He wouldn't have done that unless he knew that her grandfather was his own grandfather. We will carry on next time.
Next part. Here we'd like to remind people that Ahmed Osman has 7 books published: Moses and Akhenaten, Christianity and Ancient Egyptian Religion, The Hebrew Pharaohs of Egypt, The Lost City of the Exodus, Jesus in the House of the Pharaohs, The Soul of Ancient Egypt, Breaking the Mirror of Heaven, and his new book, The Egyptian Origin of King David and the Temple of Solomon, is now pre-selling on Amazon. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ahmed Osman.
Bye.